The year is 48 BC. Rome is engulfed in civil war. One man stands at the centre of the chaos, Julius Caesar, Rome's greatest general. Across the Mediterranean, another ruler faces a desperate struggle for survival, Cleopatra VII, Queen of Egypt. Their meeting would trigger a chain of events that would reshape Rome, transform Egypt, and echo through history for more than 2,000 years. It would produce a son, ignite scandal across Rome, create powerful enemies, and help set in motion the collapse of the Roman Republic. But the story of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra was never simply a romance. It was a political alliance, a gamble for power, and one of the most consequential relationships in history. This is the story of Caesar and Cleopatra, from their first meeting to their final farewell. Chapter 1. A Queen in Exile. Before Cleopatra met Caesar, her throne was already slipping away. Born in 69 BC, Cleopatra was a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty, the Greek rulers who had governed Egypt since the days of Alexander the Great. Unlike many of her predecessors, Cleopatra was highly educated. She spoke multiple languages, studied philosophy, and understood politics better than many kings. When her father died, Cleopatra became co-ruler with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. But sharing power was never the plan. A bitter struggle soon erupted between the siblings. Court advisors turned the young king against Cleopatra. Before long, she was driven from Alexandria and forced into exile, her throne seemingly lost. Cut off from her capital and surrounded by enemies, Cleopatra gathered loyal supporters and prepared for a desperate struggle to reclaim her kingdom. Then fate intervened. A Roman civil war brought the most powerful man in the Mediterranean directly to Egypt. On Chapter 2, Caesar arrives in Egypt. Julius Caesar had just defeated his rival Pompey at the Battle of Pharsalus. Pompey fled to Egypt seeking refuge. Instead, Egyptian officials murdered him, hoping to win Caesar's favour. When Caesar arrived in Alexandria and was presented with Pompey's severed head, he was reportedly horrified. The gesture had achieved the opposite effect. Now Caesar found himself drawn into Egypt's internal power struggle. Both Ptolemy XIII and Cleopatra sought his support. The future of Egypt now rested in the hands of a single Roman general. Cleopatra understood that if she failed to win Caesar's support, she might lose her throne forever. Chapter 3. The Meeting. Ancient writers tell a famous story. Unable to enter Alexandria openly, Cleopatra secretly made her way into Caesar's palace. According to tradition, she was wrapped inside a carpet, or possibly a sack of bedding, and smuggled past the guards. When the bundle was opened before Caesar, Cleopatra emerged unexpectedly. Whether every detail is true remains debated, but the result is not. Caesar was immediately intrigued. Cleopatra possessed intelligence, charisma, confidence, and an extraordinary ability to read people and situations. She understood exactly what Caesar represented. Rome's strongest man could restore her throne. Caesar saw advantages as well. A friendly ruler in Egypt would secure Rome's grain supply and strengthen his position in the eastern Mediterranean. What began as a political alliance would grow into one of the most famous relationships in history. Chapter 4. War for the Throne. Ptolemy XIII refused to accept Caesar's decision to support Cleopatra. The dispute escalated into open warfare. Alexandria, one of the greatest cities of the ancient world, suddenly became a battlefield. Roman soldiers and Egyptian forces clashed in fierce fighting throughout the city. The conflict became known as the Alexandrian War. During the fighting, parts of the city burned. Some ancient sources even suggest that sections of the famous Library of Alexandria may have been damaged. After months of brutal struggle, Caesar finally emerged victorious. Ptolemy XIII died while attempting to flee. Cleopatra reclaimed her throne. At just 21 years old, she had defeated her rivals and secured her position, and she had done so with Caesar at her side. Chapter 5. The Romance. Following the war, Caesar remained in Egypt far longer than expected. The two travelled together along the Nile. Ancient accounts describe luxurious journeys aboard royal barges. For Cleopatra, the relationship offered protection and prestige. For Caesar, Egypt offered a rare respite from the relentless political storms consuming Rome. In 47 BC, Cleopatra gave birth to a son. She named him Ptolemy XV. History remembers him by another name, Caesarion. Throughout the Mediterranean, many believed Caesar was the father. Although Caesar never formally recognized Caesarion as his legal heir, few doubted the connection. To supporters and critics alike, the child became a symbol of the extraordinary bond between Rome's most powerful man and Egypt's most famous queen. Chapter 6. Cleopatra in Rome. In 46 BC, Cleopatra travelled to Rome. Her arrival caused a sensation unlike anything Rome had seen in years. Romans were fascinated by Egypt's wealth and exotic reputation, but many were deeply suspicious of Cleopatra. To conservative Romans, she represented foreign influence. Rumours spread through the city at astonishing speed. Some feared Caesar intended to make Cleopatra his queen. Others whispered that he planned to move the centre of power eastward. The scandal intensified when Caesar erected a golden statue of Cleopatra in a Roman temple. To his supporters, it was a gesture of respect. To his enemies, it was evidence that Caesar had abandoned Roman traditions. Political tensions were already pushing the Republic toward a breaking point. Now, Cleopatra's presence made them even worse. Chapter 7. The End of an Alliance. Despite the controversy surrounding her presence in Rome, Cleopatra remained close to Caesar during the final years of his life. Yet even at the height of their influence, danger surrounded them. Caesar's growing power had alarmed many senators, and conspiracies were forming in the shadows of Rome. In 44 BC, Julius Caesar was suddenly killed, bringing an abrupt end to one of history's most famous political and personal partnerships. For Cleopatra, the consequences were immediate. The man who had restored her throne, defeated her enemies, and secured her position as Queen of Egypt was gone. The political world she had carefully navigated now became dangerously uncertain. Adding to the uncertainty was Caesar's final will. Rather than naming Caesarion as his heir, Caesar adopted his grandnephew Octavian, a young man who would soon become one of the most powerful figures in Rome. Recognizing that the political climate in Rome was becoming increasingly unstable, Cleopatra left the city and returned to Egypt. There, she focused on strengthening her rule and securing the future of her son, Caesarion, whom she presented as the son of Julius Caesar and the rightful continuation of his legacy. The alliance between Caesar and Cleopatra had ended, but its effects would continue to shape the Mediterranean world for decades to come. Without Caesar's support, Cleopatra faced a new challenge: surviving in a Roman world now dominated by ambitious men competing for power. And among those men was a Roman commander who would soon become the next great chapter in Cleopatra's life: Mark Antony. Was the relationship between Julius Caesar and Cleopatra truly a love story, or was it one of history's greatest political partnerships? Perhaps. Ancient sources suggest genuine affection, but it was also a partnership built on ambition, necessity, and power. Caesar gained influence in Egypt. Cleopatra gained her throne. Together, they produced a child who symbolized the union of two worlds, yet their dreams would not survive them. Within a generation, Egypt would become a Roman province. The republic Caesar had dominated would become an empire, and the romance that began with a secret meeting in Alexandria would become one of history's most famous legends, not merely because it changed two lives, but because it helped change the fate of nations and altered the course of history itself. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like and subscribe for more histories of empires, wars, and legendary figures from antiquity and the medieval period.